Evers, and today I will be talking about some practice tips for the Flute TMEA Etude in G major. So the first thing that I noticed about this etude is that the rhythm is essentially the same. It is just all 16th notes. So don't try to overcomplicate it, even though this is a technical etude. The only difference between these 16th notes is the feel of the meter, going back and forth between groups of 2 and groups of 3, and just making sure that that feeling is there of switching back and forth between a 3 feel and a 2 feel. 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2. So the way that you can tell whether it's a 2 versus a 3 is by looking at the beaming under the notes. If they are in a group of 3, it's going to have the feel of 3. If they are just grouped by 2, then it'll be 2. Just make sure that you kind of emphasize that feeling. Another big thing that I'm seeing is the difference between the staccato notes and the slurred notes. Just really make sure that you are paying attention to where the articulations are, where do the slurs start and where do they end, and then vice versa, where do the articulations or the staccato starts and then where do they end as well. So just be very aware of what the articulations are throughout this etude. For the articulated notes, you're going to want to make sure that you play with a very nice and light, crisp articulation. Make sure that your tongue is very towards the forward or the front part of your mouth whenever you are articulating, so that the sound can be very nice and light and crisp. Make sure that your tongue is also light as well. We don't want a very hard, thuddy articulation or tongue. Just ta, 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 ta. Just very light and clean. So whenever you're practicing this etude or really learning it, there's a couple of different layers or steps in learning. So the first is making sure that you are playing the correct notes and the correct rhythms. So since we know that each note is rhythmically going to be the length of a 16th note, that's kind of easy for us, right? And then just recognizing when we are switching back between a triple and duple feeling, that's also important, but making sure that you're playing the correct notes, making sure that you're playing an F when it needs to be an F natural and not an F sharp, or that you're playing a G sharp or a C sharp instead of a G or C natural. Just make sure that you are playing the correct notes, okay? Correct notes and correct rhythms. That is going to be the foundation. And correct articulations. Those 3 things are going to be the foundation, and then you can layer and add on top of those the phrasing, the dynamics, the intonation, and all of the other things on top. Something else that's very important to keep in mind is do not go faster than what you can comfortably play. Because when you are in the audition room, and if you're going fast but you're tripping over yourself, that's not going to be impressive. You may be going faster, but if it doesn't sound clean, then it doesn't sound good. And I, as a judge, would rank someone a lot higher if they play it a little bit slower, but they're playing it cleanly and they're playing the correct notes and they're not tripping over themselves. So do not go faster than what you can comfortably play. Of course, you can practice to get yourself to play at a faster tempo, but do not try to go super fast if you cannot play it faster than what you can. What you can do to practice to get yourself to a faster tempo is to start off at a slow tempo and practice at that slow tempo until that feels very, very comfortable, and then you can bump up the met just a couple of beats, and then start over again and play at that tempo until you get very comfortable, and then once again bump up the met, and just keep doing that process. That way you can get comfortable playing at a faster tempo. Speaking of tempo, I personally feel the bars in 1. Since we know that each measure is going to have 6 16th notes in it, whether it's in duple or triple, we know that there's 6 notes. So feeling the bars in 1 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4 5 6 ba-dee da 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 be da 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 ba-dee da 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 da. So that's personally how I feel it, is I feel the tempo or I feel the beat in 1 going forward. Also, feeling the tempo in 1 will also help give it more of a forward motion while you're playing. And you're going to want to keep this forward motion, so don't stall your air or try to kind of like backtrack in the air a little bit. You want to make sure that you are going forward, 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 forward while you're playing. That way it definitely feels like you're going somewhere instead of just kind of halting or coming back. You wouldn't be walking down a path and then all of a sudden just stop in the middle of picking up your foot, right? You would complete your step and then you would complete the next step. You would keep walking forward. Is kind of the same motion here. Something that I feel to kind of help with this forward motion is feeling my air in the front of my mouth and that I am pushing it out. Something that can help with learning this piece, since it does, it can be a little tricky technically, look for any patterns or any broken chords or arpeggios or even scalular patterns. That will really be helpful in recognizing those and learning this etude. So for example, in the first 3 measures, we see that at the beginning of each measure, there's just an octave jump, but then coming down, it's in a scalular fashion. It's an octave up and then we go down the scale stepwise, and then octave up and go down the scale stepwise. So look for that type of pattern, or look for any type of arpeggios or thirds that are apart from each other. Recognizing those is going to be really, really important and beneficial for getting more comfortable with this etude. Something else that you might find helpful while you're analyzing this piece is to kind of figure out what the skeleton is. And by the skeleton, I kind of mean like the bare bones or kind of the harmonic progression of this piece. So if that means just playing the first notes of every measure, or whenever it switches between the triples and duples, just playing those notes to kind of get a feel for what or where this etude is going is also probably going to be helpful in your understanding of it. So if I play the skeleton of the first 4 measures, basically just the first note of each measure, and then in that 4th measure, I'm splitting it by playing the first note and the 4th note. And see how that kind of ties into the So along with analyzing any arpeggios, broken chords, scales, go ahead and analyze the skeleton as well. See if there's any like anchor notes or other notes that you may find that can be really helpful in determining where you're going with the etude. Something that I personally noticed is that in measures 47 and 48, the last couple of measures at the end, they're actually just the same notes repeated up an octave. So go ahead and see if you can find any other maybe repeated octaves or any other type of pattern that repeats itself. There's quite a couple. Since we're also kind of talking about the end, as we get to it towards the end, there's 2 measures where you're going down to like a low C and a low C sharp. What I do in order to make sure that I'm going to be able to play those low notes is that I kind of prep myself to get ready for those low notes. So I have a note written down to prepare myself for the low C. And so as I'm going down to that low C, maybe it's making sure that my finger is hovering over my low C sharp or my low C keys. That way when I press that finger down, I have a much better chance of getting that low note to come out almost immediately. So for example, in the end of measure 46 going into 47, we have a low E flat that's going down into our low C. So we have our E flat. You can roll over, make sure that, so I prep myself by making sure that my pinky is really close to my C. That way I can just roll my pinky over and have a better chance at having that low C come out. If your flute doesn't necessarily have a little roller on the E flat key to help facilitate that, another trick that might be beneficial for you is to, if you want to, is that you can take your pinky and get a little bit of nose grease or oil, and then kind of slide that onto your key, and that will make sliding a lot easier as well. In the second to last measure, where we are going from like up to a high G and then we come down a little bit, there it says to slow down. So you can really take your time in that measure. You don't have to necessarily go fast or go as fast as what you were playing in the measures before. You can take your time. That way you can really kind of prepare yourself a little bit better for that last measure. And I also find that taking my time and really slowing down there, it also just helps me feel a little bit more calm in those last two measures to make sure that I don't necessarily try to mess anything up. And it'll also help the ending of the etude to sound like the end. And then for that very last measure, once we go up to that high G, go ahead and just release that high G out. Make it a very open-ended sounding G. I don't mean a shrill sounding G, I just mean don't necessarily like close off the air where it's bop. Okay, you can open it out and release it a little bit more where it has that ring at the end. So instead of a bop, more of a ba. Okay. Another tricky thing about this etude is going to be planning where you're going to breathe. So this etude, the phrases are usually in about 3 to 4 bars, or generally wherever the pattern kind of starts to shift or it starts to do something new. So usually at the ends of those phrases is when I would take a breath, and I would take a very big breath. It's much better to take a very big breath and be able to play for the next 3 or 4 bars uninterrupted. That way you can get the whole phrasing out instead of playing in the middle of a bar or in the middle of a slur or the middle of a phrase, and it kind of distracts from the music. In my score, I have about maybe 6 or 7 breaths written down, and I've deliberately gone through my score and marked when I can take those breaths. So really plan out where you're going to breathe. That's going to be very important. Something that there's also a lot of in this etude are a lot of the leaps and jumps between the intervals. So something that I do to kind of help overcome those is making sure that I am always prepped for the next note that is coming up, whether that be going down to a low note or going up to the higher notes. And I make sure that I stay very open in my mouth cavity and that I allow my air to come forward. I'm not pinching my air or necessarily trying to control my air too much so that the air doesn't accidentally do the wrong thing. I really think of my air as being very open and free and just flowing forward, and that usually helps me a lot when I'm traveling between these big interval jumps. And to add on to that, record yourself. Listen to yourself play through this etude. See if there's things that you like or things that you don't like that you could work on. A big thing that might happen is cracking of the notes. And so whenever that happens, go back and really try to figure out, well, are we cracking upwards? Are we cracking downwards? Or what can we do to avoid those cracks? So really try your best to avoid cracking the notes if at all possible. That way we can have a much more smoother sound and smoother playing as we are going through this. Typically, cracks happen through some sort of tension within our embouchure or some other type of tension somewhere. So just be aware of that while you're practicing. Because in the end, how you practice is how you perform. So when you have very intelligent and thoughtful and patient practice sessions, then that will really go to help you for whenever you're performing or auditioning on this etude. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I am more than happy to help you with any questions that you may have. I hope that this video was really helpful and informative for you, and thank you so much for watching. Bye bye!